So let's kick it off. There's a concept floating around at the moment. Digital transformation is not just about technology. I know we've talked about it before with a couple of customers and the broader business community. Now the question, the context is really, there's a lot of organisations that are with good intent charging ahead and rolling out technology and digital, but perhaps there's not a strong enough link between what they're rolling out and then adding actual client value to that. It'd be great to hear what you're seeing in the market and Orkestra as well, how you're looking at bridging that gap between technology and then customer value.
Yeah, I think you sort of got to break the term apart, digital and transformation. So, I mean, the first part is that people immediately, when they hear the term digital, go, "Oh, technology."
Yes.
So they should, right? The technological innovations that have happened just in the past 10 years alone, and what we expect to see in the next 5 years, it's just exponential.
Yeah.
Whether it be automation, artificial intelligence, all of these different technologies. But the transformation component is the part that you really need to focus on. So imagine now that you've got limitless capability, the barriers have never been lower to be able to access all this great technology, but how do we help people change and evolve into using that technology, and for what purpose? I mean, we're all guilty of having various gadgets and devices that sit in our house that now sit in cupboards that we've purchased and used. I think a lot of businesses forget that they're pretty much the same as well. We all invest in these technologies. So, the most under-addressed part in that process from transformation, I think, really exists in, well, what are we transforming? Why are we transforming? And how are we helping humans, whether it be customers or internal staff, actually use this technology that we're investing in, again, to work better together.
Makes perfect sense. The humans at the end of the line you mentioned there. Sometimes we, with good intent, we get so focused on rolling out quickly in an agile way, but sometimes we forget that who we're trying to serve is that human at the end of the line, isn't it? So,
well, 100%. I mean, you can break a business apart into so many different components, but ultimately, value generation, in my opinion, is created by reducing frictions between the human and the outcome that we're looking to achieve. Businesses exist to do jobs that we otherwise don't want to do, or otherwise can't do, because they've got those assets and capabilities. So I think the human element often gets lost to the idea of just transforming because we should, or because we need to try and keep pace, or because if we don't, well, there might be this risk. Whereas I think when you take more of that human-centered approach and you look at, well, what jobs are we actually trying to solve, or problems are we trying to solve, and how are we helping humans to reduce friction, then you start to come up with frameworks around transformation where you're actually addressing the human as well.
If we look at what's happening in the broader world at the moment, there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of ambiguity. A lot of our customers, some of them can't really see further than 90 days ahead. Now, I know Orkestra is pretty unique in the market. It's not just technology services. You look at actually how you can help your customers grow from a marketing, from a digital perspective. What are you seeing at the moment with the unknowns, both in your own business, Orkestra, and your broader customers?
I think the way I'd answer that is, businesses have varying levels of maturity in understanding their customer. And you have some businesses that have really entered this period, which has been immensely disruptive, not really truly understanding their customer. But then you have a lot of businesses that have come into this period thinking they understand their customer, but their customer needs have changed. And we're the same, right? So, for us, the conversation we were previously having with customers may have been more of an optimization conversation. How do we become more efficient? How do we do these things? Now the conversation we're having is a lot more to how do we connect with customers on new platforms? How do we drive and generate value in a sales process without the face-to-face? So, I guess from an Orkestra standpoint, we've needed to really make sure we put our focus on how do we help customers or understand more about our customers and the pain points they're having at that front-end transaction level. Mindful that cash flow is tight. We've had to transition a lot of our business model to that. But then for our customers as well, the advice that we're definitely providing is that your messaging, your product features, the services that you offer and deliver, they need to be attuned to your customers' needs now, because they changed significantly in March.
So, and to be honest, you're one of those guys, in our work previously and what I see the work you're doing now with Orkestra, you're able to essentially cut through a lot of the noise. There's a lot of really good delivery partners out there that do really good technology delivery, and they do it really well. But what I see, you're a bit different personally, and Orkestra as an organisation. You're able to cut through that noise of just delivering something, to work with your customer and work with them to get them to ask why they're doing it. How's that actually going to affect their business growth and their end customer? Is there any examples? I know we've talked through some recently, but is there some examples that come to mind along that line where you've helped your customer?
Yeah, look, I mean, without mentioning names,
Yeah.
We've got customers that operate in the education space. I mean, and that's just an area where you go, imagine selling into secondary schools when schools have been closed for such a big period of time. But it's an area that's ripe for innovation because the school's business model's changing. So from our standpoint, transitioning the sales team, marketing approach, messaging, creation of webinars, making sure that we're connecting with the right audience, being able to facilitate that conversation with the right content on video, actually enabled the pipeline to grow through COVID rather than decrease. So in that regard, we're using technology not just as a part of an efficiency gain, we're using technology to actually solve a very specific problem. I can no longer reach my customer face to face. And when I reach my customer digitally, how do I do that in a way with informed information that actually solves the problem that they're having right now? And that's probably the most pertinent example because, and again, we've seen schools close, or extended terms in Victoria. So again, the business model disrupted. We just came back where we can get back to face to face. So even things like just planning out how workshops happen digitally, what content's delivered through that, but also in what context of the school's new challenges. Adapting the product that's been built, in this instance, a software solution, adapting the product to address the needs of the market now. And a good example of that was within 2 weeks, we'd identified the need to include appointment scheduling and integrate video with Microsoft Teams, with Blackboard, and with Zoom. Within 2 weeks of capturing those requirements, the first release was done and a new value proposition was presented to the market. That's the sort of agility that an organisation needs. And that's what I love doing, is helping businesses identify that.
Yeah, on that point, I know I've heard a bit about, you talk about it before, but what was the real human and intrinsic reasons you started Orkestra in the bigger sense?
Well, I think there's always two sides to that. There's the personal reason, and then there's the professional reason. So the underserved need that you saw in the market. Personally, I think I'd hit that plateau of growth working in organisations. It's just the truth. I found myself living in sort of these 18-month cycles with businesses. You come in, it's exciting, it's a new team, you deliver value, and then you sort of go, well, I'm not growing here. So, it was sort of a very natural progression to then go, well, look, now's probably the right time. Maybe I probably left it 4 years too late. Now's the right time, to pony up and actually make this happen. Bring that then into context of, well, what's the underserved need that I saw? I think where technologists get lost is in the understanding that innovation needs to be married to marketing. They're not mutually exclusive. If you're not understanding what your customer's after, which is the product development side of marketing, feeding that into the innovation, which is using the great technologies which have been released. And it's amazing what you can do now. Do you know what I mean? It's nuts.
And at the same time, the balance is, I suppose, it's looking at where your customers are actually at within the cycle of their business. And perhaps to some organisation, AI might not be relevant at this stage. Looking at what technology is actually going to help them grow in this stage of their business.
In context of the problem of their customer. It's got to be to a job. A lot of people, I think, look at machine learning and go, oh, we've got to do that. Neural networks, I need to understand it. Well, hang on, but for what purpose? What problem are you truly trying to solve? And I mean, that's the interesting thing about digital transformation is some businesses see it as a point in time thing. Some businesses see it as, well, digitizing the existing workflow that we're doing. Whereas for myself, I see it as a process of, using these innovations in context of the customer's need to continuously evolve and deliver value. You know, value creation, again, used to be a point in time thing. I put it in a box, the customer buys 10,000 units of the box. Great, well, as I might need to change the box a little bit in my software, but just enough to not make my customer leave. Now the barriers are so low with technology that your competitive advantage is 100% driven by your ability to co-create and design solutions with your customer, but keep pace so that they can actually transform with you.
All right, so from a business strategy perspective with Foundstone, so we work with a lot of customers in terms of helping them co-discover and co-create their business strategy with their end customers. Now, a lot of the time, that's a bit unusual to the traditional way. Normally, it's organisation, boards, CEOs feeling like they have to be the smartest people in the room, come up with all the good ideas. But what we see is you're lacking then all the insights and the ambiguity and the problems from the customers
100%.
outside looking in. So I know you do that from a technology sense, so the co-creation part with your customers. Is there a couple of examples where it's worked well and you've seen it in action?
100%. I mean, I think drawing that clear distinction between the work that we do from a co-creation standpoint and the work that Foundstone does, I think is important. When we're getting engaged with a customer, if the business isn't sure where it wants to go, or it doesn't have the backing and support of the organisation to truly invest, those sorts of things make it very difficult for us to engage. Because what happens is it's piecemeal, it's cannon in the air, you know, how are we going to deliver value? I'll just test it and eventually you run out of money. You run out of money or you run out of time.
Especially in the environment we're in at the moment.
100%. And, you know, so making sure that the business is committed to this idea of transformation or this idea of this new product or service that we want to take to market is sort of crucial for us first. But we typically do the co-creation part past the MVP.
Right.
So the business may have already built a certain level of innovation. Maybe they've developed that with their customers. Maybe they haven't. Sometimes it's more retrospective. For us, as a part of the engagement process we build for clients, it's actually about saying, well, how do we capture that feedback and information to inform the continuous improvement of the product? What you don't want to do is release an MVP and then not get feedback. That's
kind of defeating the whole service.
Well, it's a funnel that has a hole at the bottom and drops out, rather than a flywheel of continuous improvement. So, I mean, for us, one example would be in our education client, would be the idea of actually working directly with schools to gain their feedback, where, you know, before you may have had 5 features in the product that were relevant, and the school saw value in them. But they said to us, well, if it had these 10, it would solve a lot more problems for me. Well, that informs your development cycle. You prioritize that across all of your customers and you go, great, these are the features that we need to release.
Just on that point, so, you know, the term digital and digital transformation gets thrown around, doesn't it? And
100%.
probably it's been thrown around for years, and it's kind of, some people have
paperless office in a doctor. Oh, we're digital.
That's right. We're scanning in documents. So I know we talked about it recently, that to some people, say for example in healthcare, that removing the fax machine or getting documents scanned is a step towards doing digital. From my perspective, we look at it, you know, from a business strategy perspective, that if there's not a direct link between improving the experience of the end customer or providing efficiency to help that experience, then in our mind, we'd probably question how close to digital that is. I know you talked through a couple of examples, but where do you see that real definition? I know there's not a perfect definition, but I know you can sum it up pretty well.
I think everyone's got their own spin on what it looks like. For me, I mean, if you draw it back just for fun to the 60s, digital was the invention of the transistor that now runs in the CPU of everything that we do.
Sure, you could draw those lines.
You could draw it all the way back to there if you really wanted to. But the fact of the matter is the digital revolution, or the third industrial revolution, which is the digital age, has been a process of us consistently innovating with technology and then the business world catching up by adoption of that technology. So when I think of digital, I don't think of it as a point in time thing or as a process of improving the customer's experience. That's an outcome that you get. Digital's a mindset.
Yes.
Am I progressive enough to adopt the technology? Do I have the culture and the strategy and the investment to keep pace? Or can I lead and let the present catch up?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I think of digital, I think of it as a mindset of an organization to say, this is the framework of how our business works and we're continuously improving. And you can draw those distinctions from a startup like Uber, who grew up digital and continuously improves, versus your taxi company who needs to transform in order to adopt and start to transition into that change. And everyone uses those examples, but it's just an easy one, right? It's just a really easy one.
Yeah, I like that.
But so for a lot of businesses now, digital isn't about keeping pace anymore. It's about maintaining relevance. Because when you digitize a business model or you change or transform a business model digitally, you're adding more value than the existing market competition. And when you do that, you either drive down cost or you increase service and you increase quality. And we know that when you do those things, you win.
So you're heading in the right direction.
You're heading in the right direction and you win. If you outscore the market, you're going to win demand.